of you who haven't met Laurie is here. And for those of you who haven't met myself, I'm Talitha Nelson, I'm the Chief Exec, and you've been talking to Sarah, may not have met her. So there's the three of us on today. So just a quick introduction, just to say thank you so much for joining us. Absolutely brilliant to get this much engagement around the digital piece. We're trying to look at how we can best share this funding to get some really good work happening, or support some really good work already happening. So I'll move on from a bit of an introduction, and then there'll be an opportunity, the majority of time we're hoping you guys will do the talking and share some of the work you're doing, because ideally we're encouraging partnership working and collaborations. And often when we're doing these chats, people are starting to message each other saying, oh my God, I love what you're doing. Can we have a chat afterwards? So we're hoping it will encourage those sorts of conversations and conversations after this. If we've got lots of hands up, I'm going to move you on quickly to get through as many people as possible who want to share what they're doing. If there aren't many hands up, I'll just keep the conversation going with the person who's talking. So just be mindful, if I do have a few hands up, I will start moving you on. The next steps, Cheryl will share those, how to apply and what the application process is. And then that will be it. We've only got an hour, so we'll move things on. So if we can go on to the intro slide. For those of you who don't know us, a very quick introduction. We're a community foundation. We're one of, it's now 47, Manchester's joined, community foundations across the UK. So we delivered over £1 billion worth of grants nationally, and we have a total endowment of 614 million. Last year, collectively, we delivered 98 million in grants, an average size of 4,000. So as the community foundations sit in most of the areas and counties of and regions of the country, our grant size, as you can see, is very small. So it's specifically for small groups and small community groups and grassroots. We're a membership organisation, so we're governed by UKCF. We're about to go through our assessment. It's a bit like Ofsted, and we're assessed every 3 years. However, we do remain a completely independent charity. We focus on grassroots, as we discussed, and the funds, I guess because we have an endowment model, there's an area of money that we're able to support maybe the issues that are overlooked or the issues that are less popular, because we have funding there, and we try and distribute that as fairly as possible across the county, because often if you are an organisation that has to do regular fundraising, maybe the popular issues get the funding and maybe the less popular issues get overlooked. So this is where we hope to fill some of those gaps and level things up a bit. In 2020, our grant making increased fourfold. So our average is around 300,000 a year, and we've tipped over £1 million this year, mainly due to our COVID fund. So we've had to change and adapt rapidly, as well as try and support where we can. So we're all going through a lot of learning at the moment, as everybody is. So we have a strapline. It's community foundations support the changing needs of communities. So with the endowment model, it's there for life. So when we've gone and we've moved on, that endowment sits there and supports the community forever. So that's why needs are going to naturally change. We need to do our research. We need to keep knowledgeable about those changing needs, and that's where the funding will change over time. So moving on. So today's funding is interesting, and as UKCF are going through some major changes themselves and have expanded the team, we are starting to get quite a lot of interest from national companies, all sorts of organisations coming to UKCF for community foundations to distribute across the country. So this is really exciting. The first major partnership was with the NET, the National Emergencies Trust, last year. A huge amount of money came across the country through community foundations, and it was delivered incredibly quickly, which means it's starting to, as a network, attract a huge amount of different offers and interests. Now this one is interesting because we were one of only 6 community foundations chosen chosen in the whole of the country. So out of 47, we're very fortunate that we've been picked. So it's a little bit of a trial. So Cellnex is a very large company. If you Google them and have a bit of a look at who they are and what they do, essentially we want to develop that relationship with them. So a bit of a test. So we're hoping with the funding we have, and it's been equal funding across all 6 community foundations, that we can do something really interesting and innovative or wide-reaching to show Cellnex that there's real need, and that's, you know, there's a real opportunity to keep continuing to support these projects in our county. We conducted research last year, towards the end of last year, mainly because we needed a frame of reference to start thinking about how can we support our community where it's needed. And as much as we gathered a huge amount of intel over processing 400 applications that year in a short space of time, you don't necessarily get the opinions coming through that help you really form where there's need. So we've done a really big piece of research, which is on our website. We've got a big long report if anyone wants to read that, but we've got a short report as well. Now, out of this research, there was a really fundamental part around how can we support recovery, resilience, future-proofing. So that question was, how can we support you in ways other than funding? Over 100 people answered, and out of that, the #1 response, and that was 60 people answered, that they would look to GCF to help support the forming of partnerships and collaborations. That was #1, which is quite interesting, because when I started, and it wasn't that long ago, a year and a half ago, it felt very much competition over collaboration rather than collaboration over competition. And now I think, having gone through this year, everyone sees and feels the real benefits of partnership working. So there's huge appetite for this. So this is where we as funders have got to think about how can we influence this piece around partnership working. Also, our research showed the signs around digital poverty, which has moved on pretty rapidly since our research in just a few months. It's an area that is becoming a hot topic. So around digital poverty and exclusion as a major barrier for charities to recover. So around 26% struggle to continue services because of lack of skill or lack of equipment, etc., to take services online. Also, we became very aware of the plight of individuals, from young people and accessing learning through digital equipment, lack of Wi-Fi, etc., but also for older people. So it was really wide-ranging for individuals who end up becoming very isolated and lonely through not having access to digital. Therefore, this funding gives us a real opportunity to work differently and to encourage joint bids and partnership working, to really look at achieving a wider reach, a greater impact over a longer period of time. So really now it's just getting that conversation going, sitting in a place where we can open up those conversations and just see where it takes us. We don't want to be prescriptive about an agenda here, but a chance for you to start getting some of those thoughts and ideas out there for others to hear, and maybe there's opportunities for you to think about linking up with each other. So if there's lots of hands up, then as I said, I'll move on. If there's not many hands up, then we'll keep the conversation going, and then Sarah will obviously give us a time check, and then we can just follow up and finalise with what the next steps are. So who would like to kick us off with some thoughts? Kathy? Hi there, Kathy.
Hi, I'm here to represent GFWI, the Gloucestershire Federation of Women's Institutes. Obviously, our members haven't been able to meet through the year. They meet for education and socialisation and companionship purposes. A lot of them are elderly, a lot of them are very tech averse. So we've sort of had a two-pronged approach to trying to reach out and help those people still keep connected. The WIs, each individual WI is run by a small committee, and dependent on how forthcoming that committee are, will define how much activity they do. So we have been operating one-to-one training sessions, literally starting them over the phone, getting them onto Zoom, getting them used to how to use it, and sometimes Facebook and other things as well. I did a PowerPoint training session for 1WI this morning. Then following that, what we've been doing really since last summer is we used to have lots of events and activities, but we've now been doing all of those online, obviously. That includes workshops, demonstrations, talks, our campaigning work that we do. Ovarian cancer is the big one for this coming year. But we still struggle to reach the not only older people that are averse to technology, people that just don't want to know about technology and how to keep in touch with everyone. We have coffee and chat sessions, knit and natter sessions on Zoom, craft and everything. We've got a craft club on Zoom, everything. But we can't reach or persuade those older people to, not only older people, sorry, those people to take the jump and join in.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, we do hear that it is, you know, for older people, just either they don't have the equipment for starters, maybe they don't have a smartphone or an iPad or a laptop, you know, so there's an equipment barrier. Then there's skills and who's going to show people how to use these things. And then there's the appetite of wanting to use them to stay connected. So it is a real challenge. But thank you, Kathy. Carol.
Yeah, I think just commenting on that, I think what Kathy said about the one-to-one, if somebody's tech averse, for want of a better phrase, and that doesn't have to be elderly people, but somebody who's really genuinely nervous. So I was meeting with a woman in her early 50s this week who just has never used any kind of tech, realizes she needs to, but she's terrified.
Yeah.
And in that instance, I think it's got to be one-to-one. And really, it needs initially face-to-face. And that's the problem that we've been facing because of the lockdown since January.
Yeah.
All of that kind of really close up, getting people started, which needs a face-to-face, side-by-side. Look, I'm clicking on my machine, you click on yours, or
yeah.
No, it's okay, don't panic, it's fine. That it's very difficult to do that with a complete beginner over the telephone. And that would be my observation of the biggest problem at the moment.
So as we phase back, what do you think the solutions are?
More one-to-one, face-to-face, and so that needs more volunteers. So at the moment we're just preparing a big new volunteer recruitment program, just ready to hit that ground running when the lockdown lifts. But we have had to have a lot of things on hold because really in the lockdown time we can only help people who've got a certain level of capacity already.
Yeah. So I managed to get
an 83-year-old with only a phone onto Zoom. So it is doable. But we're planning to start digital drop-in sessions when we're allowed to. We're currently working on our premises are being made COVID secure at the moment. And then after that, we will literally invite individual people to bring in their devices and we sit down one-to-one with them. So it's familiar for them. Familiarity is so important.
Just to say, if you could let everybody know the organisation you're working with, just so we understand just the context of your working. And so Carol, could you just remind us where you're working?
I'm at GL11 in Cam.
Oh yes, GL11, brilliant, thank you.
Sorry, I'll
Now, is that Blanche? Do you have your hand up there, Blanche?
Yes, I have, yes.
Oh, brilliant. And then Olympia next.
Is it me?
Yes, please, Blanche. Do go ahead.
I'm from Hebony, and early last year we had some funding from the Carers Legacy Fund, and we did some introduction to the digital with our clients to do the Zoom, and they were very, very interested. But because many of them were living on their own, there was no continuation. So it was just the introduction, but the competency was not there. So when the lockdown eases, what we would like to do is to do some competencies with the group that we have already done the introduction to. So I did put in a chat there to see how long the funding will be there for, so that when the lockdown, whether we can apply from that point of view when we speak with each other, because everybody don't have a proper phone or even a tablet. So we would have to check all of those that need that to be done, and to get them maybe a tablet or help them with the proper phone that they need to get the competency done. Yeah.
Okay. Sarah, do you want to answer any of the chat? Because I can't see chat on my screen. Any questions coming through? So I think if Blanche, you're the only question in there, and it's about how available. It literally is just a very quick piece of funding, which we don't usually get an opportunity to do, but we're hoping we'll get more once CellNext sees what we do with this money. So essentially it's around 17 grand. It's a small pot, but we're hoping to do two grants, which essentially will be prioritizing those who have that reach and have that connectivity with partnership working and maybe a greater reach. So essentially it will be 2 grants. And so it really is a very quick turnaround. It won't be going through a normal panel process like main grants, which are only structured 3 times a year, and we've got to wait to that time. This is going to be done quickly because they also need the money distributing by the end of March. So you know what it's like with all these end of year accounts, and everybody wants funding distributed by the end of March. That's the time frame. So but what we're hoping from this conversation, and because our research has definitely guided us to this piece around digital poverty and exclusion, we want to expand this work. So it won't end here. This is the beginning. So Blanche, if you do come back with a proposal that misses this, maybe, then we can look at other options.
Okay.
And maybe the Carers Gloucestershire Legacy Fund might be the one for you, because we've supported you before through that.
That's
and
right.
If it's a continuation of service around carers, that could be quite specific funding for you.
Yes, because ours is mainly a carers group.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Olympia, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Olympia, obviously, and I'm from the Raspberry Pi Foundation, which isn't based in Gloucestershire. I'm not in Gloucestershire either, but we are a charity that helps young people to get better at creating things with computers. We also make a computer. This is the latest model, and you just need to attach a screen and mouse to it. We have some funding to distribute computers to young people, anyone under the age of 18, to help them stay connected. As you all know, as we've been discussing, the digital divide has really been highlighted by COVID, but by no means caused by it. So yes, we have funding to distribute computers for free to young people. So we're looking for partners to work with that already work with young people and can help us identify that need. So I see some waves, excellent. Yeah, I think probably, Sarah, do we and Talitha, do we do it that they contact you and then you put them in touch with me?
Well,
that's fine with me. Or
we hope you guys talk to each other, to be fair. I mean, what we were really excited about is some of the feedback we've had after our sessions is I've met some great people in the chat box, or we've contacted each other afterwards, and we've made some incredible connections. And so, I mean, you don't need to come through us. Ideally,
in that case, I will put my email address in the chat.
Yes,
please. And
so,
then yeah, and anyone that that works with young people, please do get in touch.
Perfect.
Great, thanks.
Just change the chat settings so everyone can message each other now if they want to.
I mean, that's brilliant. I mean, we have a tiny team, so we're hoping to pass the administration back over to you all. So where you can make your own connections, that's absolutely brilliant. But if there is something you've missed, obviously do ask. We will be loading up this session onto YouTube afterwards, so anyone who's missed this can and I certainly think people interested in this digital conversation, hopefully we'll have a listen, and even more people could get in touch with you. So anything you can share is great. Jenny, hi there.
Hi, afternoon everybody. For those of you that don't know me, Jenny Evans, IT Schools Africa. I'm representing our local Tech Connect community programme focusing on digital poverty in Gloucestershire. And for those of you that don't know, I just wanted to share with you a bit of the work that we're doing locally. We're definitely looking to work with more charities locally, community groups. We have big aspirations to make a difference in our local county. So first and foremost, we donate refurbished computers and laptops to local charities. We've been doing this since 2017. Obviously demand varies because we get donations from schools and businesses across the country, which we refurbish. But we are really, really keen to support more charities to support their online services, as well as individuals and families which need help digitally. So in addition to the provision of IT kit, we see the digital skills sharing as absolutely key. So we have a local program where we're enrolling digital champions within the community. We have the most wonderful resources and sort of ready-made sessions. It's an online self-study training course for people that want to be a digital champion in the community, and that's through a partnership that we have with Digital Unite, which is a proven methodology for sharing digital skills. So we have recruited 25 champions so far. We have space for another 25, so we are very keen to talk to people who are interested. You don't need to be an IT whiz to be a digital champion, just somebody who's interested in sharing digital skills with other people. The training is really in depth, really focusing on breaking down the barriers to motivation, very sort of easily accessible and useful. And then the third project, which is probably our most exciting, is at the end of the summer, we now have a double-decker bus, and we're going to repurpose our double-decker bus, and we're going to fill it with IT kit, really interesting technology, and we're going to take it around Gloucestershire for a year. We are already taking sort of inquiries, we're already booking a schedule, and we want to take it to the most sort of remote parts of Gloucestershire. We want to get people to get online and realise the benefits of the internet. So I'm going to put my email address in, and we would love to talk to you about any of those three things. And we look forward to, partnering with more of you over the next few months. Thank you so much.
That's amazing, Jenny. Thank you. I mean, we've obviously followed your journey from the start of COVID and just the incredible work you've done. So thank you. It's making an enormous difference. But what's so exciting about the work you're doing, you're really partnering across all sorts of areas, people, community groups. It's just brilliant. So I would say any of you who want to link up with IT Schools for Africa, that's a really, really good source of information and collaboration. And also, Jenny, in terms of with the bus, which is a brilliant idea, can people book you? So say if Kathy has her WI groups or WI people, I mean, I'm very mindful of rural communities and just the rural isolation and loneliness and older people. Is there a way of booking you to say, could you come to an area of, a WI meeting or a WI group or various groups? Can they book you?
Yeah, so basically we are taking inquiries and bookings now.
Brilliant.
I will, I think, just contact me via my email address for the moment. So we are busy setting up a website. You can sign up to a newsletter. And yeah, we're basically open for inquiries. We would like to partner and work with as many people across Gloucestershire. So I look forward to speaking to you.
Brilliant. Any questions, Adele? Oh,
sorry, it's not a question. It's more. It's not. It's a different point. Is that okay? Or
yes,
do you want...
I'll just finish off. Was there any questions for Jenny? No, that's brilliant. Adele, if you'd like to go, and then Sarah, did you have your hand up?
I was just going to say a couple of questions that popped up in the chat. So
right. Okay, we'll do those first, and then we'll go on to Adele.
Okay. Well, Mark had asked about the Cellnex funding, and wondering whether possibly we could get technical support from Cellnex, which I would say, as they're quite a new provider coming into the country, they probably will be looking to do things like that. I can't say for sure, but it's definitely worth an ask, I would think. I think they'd be keen to try and promote themselves wherever they can. So it's something we can look into.
Great. Any other questions?
And the other one I had was, oops, scrolling back up now. Ben was making the point that really it's a case of trying to get people to get how we get the digital for the need and not the people to fit the digital. So how we manage to get people the digital help that they need, I think. I think everyone else's comments can be seen as well.
Okay, I'm not sure if it was my connection. I don't know if my connection.
Hello?
Can anyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. So I think it might be Sarah's end. Okay, let's move on to Adele.
So our digital property goes back one layer, actually, for our clients, particularly for asylum seekers. They don't have internet in their houses. So you're even starting further back of actually not being able to access. We were able to get some funding and then crowdfunding to put in internet, MiFi, I don't know if people know MiFis, which is better than nothing, but it's not a router, into houses for a year. But we're not going to be able to sustain that indefinitely. We'd love the Home Office to think it's a necessity, no longer a luxury. But just to say that there are people out there who can't even access the internet, let alone, the poverty is right from the very beginning, not even having the IT equipment. And we've benefited from Jenny and lots of other, from IT Africa, and also amazing donations, which we've also been able to clean up and give back. But actually getting people onto the net in the first place is a massive issue.
Yeah. Adele, where do you work?
Gareth, sorry, I apologise. Gareth, Gloucestershire Action for Refugees and Asylum Seekers.
I thought you were. I just wanted to make sure I didn't give any wrong information. Yes, of course. I mean, there was a piece, luckily for this summer, particularly for children not being able to access. Some really good innovative pieces happened where they managed to get the other. What are they called? I don't use them. What do kids use? Gaming machines. They got gaming machines to be able to access learning, and various other devices which may be in households, also smart TVs. So they managed to get learning, if you didn't have a smart device, to get to a laptop or a telephone, to access through other pieces of technology that may be in people's homes. And the other piece, which was amazing, but only available for over this holiday and sort of break and lockdown period, where children were given free access to the internet, and you had to go to your school and get someone to authorize it. But essentially, again, going back to the beginning, do you even have Wi-Fi? That was one of the solutions that happened, but only for children over this period of lockdown. But that is really an issue, and maybe those big companies supplying, like Vodafone and various others, need to be thinking about what they're giving back to society, and maybe not just for the short term, but thinking about the barriers, and if they do or should be giving free internet service to the disadvantaged areas. So it's been done now. We just probably need to get on to how we influence long term for disadvantaged groups, like you say, in your area of work. So okay, so anybody else who I've not seen a hand up? Anybody else like to come in here? Mark? Hi, Mark.
Oh, yeah.
Have you had your millionaire shortbread yet?
I've had millionaire shortcake, so I'm feeling a lot better now.
Good.
Yeah. I just wanted to add really to what Adele said. I mean, I think, as I sent in my note, I think there's a systemic failure for IT provision in the country. And in Gloucester, where the regeneration plans are coming for Podsmead and Matson, I think it's really important for us to try and get some policy development so that free broadband is made available in more disadvantaged areas. And that's why I was asking the question about technical support, because I think what we need to do in Gloucester is to find a couple of blocks of flats and put in some Wi-Fi provision or something similar, so that we can provide free Wi-Fi for a period of time as a pilot project to demonstrate the added value of doing that. And so it's not money that we need, it's technical support. You know, we've spoken to City Fibre and the groups that are planning to come and lay the new fibre into Gloucester, and they're quite happy to dish out a few laptops or notebooks or whatever, but actually that's not going to resolve the issue. What is going to resolve the issue is to make broadband affordable or free. Yeah.
I just wonder, Sarah, you know, where we shared the access, free Wi-Fi access for children?
Yeah.
Shared it on Twitter. If we maybe could go back to the source of that and start thinking about where that came from and who was supporting it and how that happened, it'd probably be a piece for us to pick up with and maybe share with Mark.
Yeah, and I think that
I mean, just to add, sorry,
very much a national idea that the telephone companies were doing, which is why I'm thinking possibly broadband providers may need to start thinking about whether they do that sort of as part of their CSR policy.
Yeah, but we need,
and that's why I'm wondering with Cellnex, whether with them being quite a new provider who are trying to promote themselves, whether it might be something they possibly would consider over maybe some of the really big companies that have been around in the UK for a long time. That Cellnex are moving in from Europe, so whilst I don't know, it's just a thought in my mind that possibly they may consider it.
I think that we can manage to make Wi-Fi work for city centres, so why can't we make them work for communities? And in Gloucester, there is a push around the Resilience and Recovery Group in the city and the Social Landlord GCH, who are both trying to push City Fibre in that direction, but not getting much sign of that. So I feel a different provider would provide us with the opportunity for a really valuable pilot.
Yeah, brilliant.
Sorry.
Great idea. Thank you. And then it's Sue and then Carol, please.
Hi there. Right. I work at the Rock in Cheltenham, which most of you, some of you may know, is a youth organisation. We're based in a very deprived area of Cheltenham, which always surprises people that there's deprivation in Cheltenham, because everybody thinks, oh, you know, they've got a race course, they must be wealthy around there. But no, not everybody is. And one of the things that has kind of surprised me is that although 75% of our young people come from an area of social and economic deprivation, there doesn't seem to be too many issues with digital exclusion, because I only know of one family that we've actually gone out and bought a computer for them. But I keep asking the question and keep getting a no, it's not really a problem kind of answer, which isn't very helpful. But following up from talk about internet provision, and I don't want to go into a lot of detail now, but I'll put my email in the share in the chat box. I happen to know of a company that if you have a landline, you can get internet provision
for free. Sue?
Free, I wouldn't like to guarantee, but you know, if people have got the money to fund the cost, and just need a provider, the only requisite that I know of is that they have a landline. The biggest problem actually is that landline installation is tied to BT, but that's not a problem relevant for this discussion. But anyway, I'll put my email in the chat, and if anyone wants to contact me, I can pass on information.
Great, thanks, Sue. I think Carol was next.
Yeah, thank you. We have hearing about people in urban areas and some of those issues out in rural Cam and Dursley. There are pockets of our town where phone signals and internet provision are just, you know, a no-go. So even the youth centre in the middle of Dursley, there's not yet a fibre connection to that property. We've got a landline, but the best internet speeds that we can get are so tiny that everything falls over, and that's in the youth centre. And there are areas as well that people just living in certain postcodes, they cannot get a high enough bandwidth to do things. They get very frustrated then when they get into groups and they're in a kind of a chat situation, but they've got such low bandwidth that they can't sustain the connection. So we really do need, as well as getting people who can't afford to pay for it to have free access. It's a question, there's a lot of people who can afford to pay, it's just that there is a threshold because they don't have the right fibre connection or the right level of connection.
So with GigaClear and these various businesses going through our rural areas and this sort of area, why aren't they coming over to certain areas like yourselves? Does anyone contact GigaClear or these sorts of companies and find out how they work out where they're going and what they're doing? Because I know they've come through my village, which has helped enormously. I live in rural Gloucestershire, and obviously working from home, if you don't have connection, it's going to be really tricky to do your job even, and then all the other things around it. So we were really fortunate that they came through, but I mean, and BT have provided fairly good. I'm just outside Cirencester, but I know of places like yourselves in Cam and Dursley, just terrible areas. So how do we influence where the infrastructure goes? Does anyone, was that Rupert? Do you have an answer?
Yeah, so network is the most expensive thing to put in the ground. It really is. So it's on a cost basis. So if they can't think they're going to get a return on their investment, right, it's very unlikely that you will get them delivering. And the only other way for them to do that is if they partner with government that funds that. So it is a postcode thing, and unfortunately, you know, if you don't live in that area, it can take years. And then if you're on BT,
lobbying MPs or local, is there a way of influencing?
I've lobbied our local councillors and they've said that they're chasing it, but nothing's happening.
Yeah, it is a cost. It's just down to cost. Network is the most expensive thing. But then there are other options. So Mark was quite right, actually, because actually you can actually put up an independent satellite link anywhere.
Okay.
And gain bandwidth. So as a small community, you have some other options, which also forces the hand of people like GigaClear, because actually what they don't want is lots of mini networks popping up all over the place and taking revenue. So there are a few options, but yeah.
Are you an expert? Just if you can introduce yourself. You sound very, very knowledgeable. We'd probably like to pick your brain. So who are you, Rupert? I've not met you before.
Sorry. So I'm chair of race and equality for Gloucester, and I also run and own a business here, but my previous life is in telecoms. Yeah.
Ah, well, you're a brilliant person to have on, I have to say. So, okay, that's really interesting. So what Mark's picked up on this independent piece, and maybe if it's setting up something independent, then makes these organisations feel they're going to miss out, and maybe it encourages them to start coming through these areas. Maybe there's a joined up piece, maybe between Carol, Mark and Rupert somehow, maybe some conversations that can go on afterwards and how we fill some of those gaps, because, you know, digital poverty, like you say, starts from the very start. Can you actually get Wi-Fi in your area to start with? And then it goes on to people, as Adele mentions, living in SMOs, and maybe, you know, how do individuals then get it, even if there is Wi-Fi in the area and they can't access it? So I think that would be great if we can follow some of this up. That would be amazing. Anyone? I've got no hands up at the moment. Anybody else that hasn't had a chat about anything? Clara, I know you guys are doing an awful lot over at Holly Gazzard.
Hi everybody.
Put you on the spot.
Yes, you did. I'm so sorry. I've had hedge trimmers and stuff coming whilst the well, the Zoom's on, so I've been bobbing in and out. But I really wanted to join you today. Obviously, the trust, we've got our Holly Guard app, and there is sort of future projects that we're looking at that would sort of develop from that, and we would be really keen to work with other charities, particularly those that are sort of frontline. So we're almost like a second tier organisation. We don't work directly with people, but we deliver education and training on domestic abuse, and we've got our Holly Guard app. But we're looking at projects that perhaps might have a panic button linked to Holly Guard, and also a spare project for phones that would be preloaded with Holly Guard Extra, almost like a wraparound package that we could give to people. And it could be for anybody really, you know, anyone who needs a bit of extra support, tenants that are in a difficult situation, anyone who feels that they're a bit vulnerable. We have people use Holly Guard for lots of different reasons, people who are disabled and whatnot. So that could work for people that are, you know, disadvantaged, can't afford a smartphone, but are vulnerable. But we'd be really happy and open to conversations with people, and to develop an application for something like that. We're not at the stage of it that it's ready yet. That's that's the only sort of downside. We need to see how it works, and develop a pilot for it. Really, I think is what we want to do first of all.
Brilliant. Adele, would that be something that refugee people could access?
I was literally just thinking about that, but I was also thinking about, would you work with people who've just coming out of slavery situations where they would fit the criteria of being incredibly vulnerable?
Yeah,
I do need to check whether they get something. They may get something already through other routes, but I was about to message you and say, would you consider?
Yeah.
Because you're starting from very low point of vulnerability there, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that the sort of person that would benefit from this is somebody who's vulnerable, but somebody who's been supported in other ways too. So this is kind of an additional tool, not the only one. You know, because obviously if people are incredibly vulnerable, you do need to sort of have your belt and braces, don't you really? But I think particularly people who are experiencing stalking find it really valuable, because they can you know, all they need to do is shake their phone really if there's something happening. They can plan routes, and that's something that's coming back from feedback from Holly Guard users. So, and stalking is quite often linked to domestic abuse. When relationships break down, the perpetrator doesn't always want to let their you know, target go. So but we're working with a housing association. They provide Holly Guard Extra to their vulnerable and I've talked to them, this is not in Gloucestershire but somewhere else, about this idea too. And it would be an idea, so for some people they might want a secret phone, they might already have a smartphone, but they want to have a secret phone where they can have it if in an emergency. It might be that people have to give their phone to the police because they need to have the evidence, and we could give them the phone, that they would still have a phone. So there you go. There's quite a lot of things that we would like to do. It's just finding willing partners and funding.
We'd be definitely interested. We would definitely.
Brilliant. That sounds really exciting.
I'll just put my email there if anyone wants to get in touch with me. There you go. Thank you.
Thanks, Clara.
Nice to see all your lovely faces.
Who hasn't had a chance to speak yet? I don't want to put you on the spot, but it would be great just to hear what's going on in your world. Amanda, I think I can see you there. I can see you're trying.
Yes, very trying. I'm Amanda from the Churn Project.
Hiya.
Hey, navigator developer with the GEM, and I work with unemployed people at the Churn, organising training, running the work club, etc. Yes, so we've, at the start of the pandemic, we spent a lot of time supporting older people with getting used to Zoom. We've managed to do a training course and equipping families with digital devices, but it's the unemployed, the isolated, sort of lonely, marginalised people who can't access their universal credit journals, they can't job search. It's those people we've been trying to support now with, trying to get some grants to equip them with tablets and laptops.
Yeah.
But it's tricky because I think it's been a hell of a lockdown. It's been very difficult for everyone. It's been able to, do things on Zoom all through the lockdown. And I think with a lot of the mental health and the issues, the isolation, people are feeling very desperate and left behind. And it's really brought it home again recently, how much people are suffering that isolation, and poverty without devices. So really looking for, I've probably got about 5 people who still need a device.
Yeah. Now, I wonder if IT Schools for Africa, Jenny, whether you could team up with the Churn. I know the Churn really well because it's on my doorstep, and they're one of the few charities that does work with birth to death and everything in between. So there's a lot going on at the Churn, and one of the sort of main providers in this rural area. So it would be brilliant, Jenny. I don't know, Amanda, if you want to connect with Jenny, because Jenny and IT Schools for Africa do have devices.
No, Jenny and we are partners at the Churn.
Oh, fine, brilliant.
Did help us with getting our own laptops because our staff team needed laptops. So I think Jenny and IT for Africa helped us at the initial.
Great, brilliant. And what about the Raspberry Pi? I just wonder, in terms of, is that suitable for older people? Was it for younger people only, or would it be able and accessible to be able to do job hunting and, stuff that you've got? Olympia, sorry.
Yeah. The Raspberry Pi itself is definitely suitable for use by older people. Right. The project that I was talking about is only for younger people, but yeah, in terms of purchasing the Pi and using it, it's a relatively low cost way to get online. Yeah.
So is that something where the Churn could apply to you to get some devices for their beneficiaries?
Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant. Please,
okay.
Please do email me.
Super. Okay. Margaret, hello, you've got your hand up.
I don't know whether this is any help to Carol, but I was a parish clerk in the north of Gloucestershire, and we had a thing through Fastershire.
Oh yes.
.com, and you can go onto their website and put your postcode in, and they tell you whether you can get fast broad. They provide. They're paid for by the government to provide fast broadband.
I've put the return on there and I'm still waiting for a response.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I just
No, that's fine.
Thank you. That's good.
Thank you but that's one of the avenues that I have gone down. And they managed to spend about 3 months saying that the particular phone number that I was talking about wasn't one that they recognised, and they kicked the can down the road a few months, and then they just stopped replying to me.
Rupert, do you know anything about them?
Rupert's just given me another contact.
Oh, amazing.
They are. So Fastershire is a combined project with the government and GigaClear or any other service provider.
Right.
So if you and it's limited. So if you don't fall in their postcode or in that project, it just won't happen.
Okay.
I mean, we at the Chill Out in Newham, we run a community cafe which does all ages, and then we run youth clubs. We've basically not really done very much during lockdown because we're just I hadn't got the staff who were willing to. They were much more face to face, so we were talking to people on the streets. Newham is small enough that as we wandered around, we met people and that sort of thing, and kept in touch like that. But thanks to IT for schools, we did get a computer, because the one thing the young people asked for before lockdown started was they wanted a computer room, and we're at the moment putting that together. We've got 1 or 2 computers and we've got a printer, because they find that a lot of them have to do schoolwork online or typed out, and they either haven't got anything at home to do it on, or their home situation is such that they don't have a quiet room to go and do their homework in. So that's why we're providing. And also we've discovered our young people actually enjoy having somebody there who they can talk to.
Yeah.
You know, you're not doing their homework for them, but you know, you're just acting like a proxy mum maybe, and you know, just giving them a little bit of guidance, you know what I mean, and reading the question for them 3 times because you're not quite sure what it means, and they're not quite sure what it means. Which I know sounds silly, but I'm quite interested, one, in this digital champion, and I will be talking to somebody who I think would be a really good candidate for that, and then having a digital drop-in, because when we do open the community cafe, we do have our own tablet, and we found that a lot of the older people find that useful for making appointments, looking on websites. They just want answers to questions, or you know, how much is something going to cost us, and they haven't got any facilities to do that. So that was a service we've been offering before lockdown, and we will continue to offer.
Great, thank you, Margaret. I'm mindful of time, and I've just got Jane to come in. Thank you very much. Jane, you've got your hand up. Would you like to come through? I'm just mindful, just a couple more now, and then we'll need to finish up. So Jane, you're next.
Hi, it's just to highlight the project that we've got. So I'm from Leonard Cheshire Disability, so we can provide equipment and support and training to anybody that's got a disability or long-term condition, and that includes mental health conditions as well. So we've been supporting quite a lot of people across Gloucestershire with equipment, and if they've not got Wi-Fi, we can provide hotspots for them, and really anything that they need, if they need training or just one-to-one support, whether it's group sessions, one-to-one support, all sorts of things. We've been working quite closely with groups like Inclusion Gloucestershire and Cheltenham Borough Homes and things like that. So just to make people aware that we're there, I'll put my details in the chat as well. So if you've got somebody that does need equipment, then please come to me.
So Jane, are you contact for this project?
Yes. Yeah,
brilliant.
So I actually cover the whole of the central England area, but yeah, that includes Gloucestershire. So
that's fantastic. So to get in touch with you, re-equipment, skill support, training, amazing. That is absolutely fantastic to know. Thank you. Bren, your hand's up.
Thank you, Talitha. I think you're doing a great job of putting sort of like glue between the pieces here, really. So what started off with, we got this amount of money, is now rightly so turned into actually let's focus on the need irrespective of the money. So well done on that. And great to see so many faces. I can see Clara there, who I haven't seen for a good while, and whatever. It's lovely to people, really. So I don't actually work in an organisation, but I try and support as best I can some of the community groups that I'm privileged to serve. And I just wondered how far that we extend the digital bit to something that other people may well think that's a social activity. So let me put that into context rather than a narrative, really. So my friend Kirsty at the Shire Youth Hub in Gloucester recognised and asked what the young people wanted. And one of the things was a Nintendo Switch, which fortunately the Police and Crime Commissioner funded. But obviously in lockdown, people couldn't use that. So she went and bought a number of Nintendo Switches and took that out to young people in care, really, so they could have it, really. So that's my first point. The second point, I think, Talitha, really, is I think that we need to think beyond the 1st of April on this. And so many times that we have money coming in, we've got to spend it really quickly, etc. And then we've got to think, well, what's the resilience around that as well, really?
Absolutely.
But that's just a thought. It's not to say that we don't take those opportunities, but I think there's a caveat. Outside of Gloucester...
Just let me pick up on that one with you, Bren. So I think, like the funding question, we're limited with funding. So what do we do to support in ways other than funding? And I think this is a perfect example of how can we get conversations going so people can work together or share assets in the community. So as much as we've had a small amount, I think maybe this conversation today, like you say, will prove really fruitful, I hope. And then I hope if Gloucestershire can prove we've done something good with this money, there's going to be more coming through. So it's a bit of a test as well. And hopefully Cellnex will want to develop a longer term relationship with us. So yeah, I totally agree. The rush of getting stuff done by March and then dropping it again and forgetting all about it isn't very helpful. So we need to think beyond that. But hopefully some of these conversations will go beyond the funding as well.
That's great, thanks. And I totally agree, because obviously the conversation has led that to the exact point you've just made. Also, I think Jenny, you know, I can see her huge. I know we shouldn't pick out people, whatever, and everyone is doing their bit, really. But I want to give an example of how it really works, or how I've experienced it really working. So Mr. Dennis from the Black Elders said to me, Bren, we want to be on this Zoom with us and some national people, but, you know, I don't have a computer and whatever, really. And I think, Jenny, correct me if I'm wrong, but within 24 hours, we got the laptop out there and whatever to Mr. Dennis set up or whatever, really, because before that he wanted to come on with his phone, and it's just not right, you know. If we're talking absolute inclusion, that's a classic example. So what I would say is, whatever it is that we're doing, really, is it's got to really show meaningful, tangible, not just a report and whatever those emotive bits. Just to give people some assurance, certainly from the NHS nationally point of view, I've been privileged to work with the NHS Business Service Authority on some IT stuff, really, and we'll be taking it forward. And we're absolutely committed to do exactly what I said in the chat about actually making the IT fit the people rather than people fit the IT. So it can happen, and it can happen with these business ones. And the final bit I put in the chat as well, and Adele picked it up so eloquently, really, in terms of those inequalities. So great, we've got all that, but people can't even afford to put the internet in. So I think that this is also one, and I'm quite happy to forward it on to them, really, in Gloucestershire, the Integrated Care Centre. Fancy great word or whatever, really. What does it mean? What do they do? So they are the strategic people across health and social care, but the police, the economic arm of Gloucestershire are there, whatever, really. So, and that's my point about linking it into resilience, is we might not have all the answers to these questions, but that doesn't mean to say we shouldn't be asking the questions. So I'll take that action away to me to lead through, if you're happy with me.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Bren. I really appreciate it. Now, I know we've got one more hand. So Jane, would you like to come in, or is that hand left up?
Sorry, I just haven't taken it down yet.
That's fine. So we're just coming to the end, and I'm sure maybe there's one or two people. Is there anything else? I don't want to cut us off short. So I'm sure if there's anyone else who'd like to say any final words, please do speak up. Sharon.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's just to say I found the discussion really interesting, and just to say that I'm here representing deaf and hard of hearing people, for which, or for whom technology, it can be really life-changing, particularly for people that can't use the phone. But lockdown has highlighted the real need of older people that we support with acquired hearing loss, because getting them to engage is really tough. So the other side of lockdown, we're keen to do what we can face to face while we can in terms of training and support. The other barrier potentially for deaf people that use British Sign Language as their first language is that you know, providing them with a technological solution doesn't necessarily meet their needs unless the information's in BSL.
Yeah.
So by that, I mean, you know, accessing the web, great, but it's all in written English, and written English can be inaccessible for people that are sign language first language. So those are the kinds of things we're looking at and working on, trying to support people to overcome those barriers.
Yeah, I did really hear some quite harrowing sort of experiences when lockdown started around people with loss of sight and loss of hearing that I just had, you know, no concept of what that must be like. Certainly with everybody with their mouths covered up now, it's even harder. And then there's a piece around looking at our resource when we do events and people want to turn up and maybe have loss of hearing, that there's somebody doing sign language, but it's extremely expensive. So if we can link up to maybe volunteers or people that are prepared to help in that way, we've got to start thinking about barriers of every barrier with any communication. And we were very mindful of that when we, I think, had a meeting with you, whether we did have somebody that was able to do sign language, because that we hadn't really thought of before, and we need to be thinking about it. So anyone who does think about any solutions around this, and if there are volunteers or if there is a way of funding communication that helps people access any of this, whether it's a conversation on Zoom, whether it's accessing websites or whatever it is, it's educating us. You know, your thoughts and your knowledge as experts coming to us is how we want to make our decisions. So I guess finalising a note that we are the community foundation that is really trying to understand what the community need is, and it's a bottom-up organisation when we need to feed that up through to our board. So it's very much you know, we need to do the work that reflects our communities, that reflects our community needs. So we really rely on what's happened in the last year. I think is the silver lining is just that information's come to us at a rate of knots, and it's been hugely helpful in helping us do the right thing. But you know, we've got so far to go in terms of making sure we continue this work. So all of your information and expertise feeding into GCF just helps us fund the right areas or think about the right things. So really welcome that information. Any final questions, comments, observations? Clara?
Yeah, I might have missed this, so apologies. Did you say that you were going to put this on the YouTube channel?
Yes, so Sarah's just going to flash up our last slide if we've got no more comments, and we'll just let you know the next step, which is a really easy process.
So our next steps are, obviously we've talked a lot about trying to encourage collaboration. So we're really pleased that so many people have been sharing their details in the chat box, and hoping that there's going to be quite a few people able to link up afterwards. In terms of the funding, I've put up on our grants programme page the details of this funding. It is, as we've said, a tight turnaround due to the conditions of the funding. But as Talitha said, that's not to say that there won't be more funding in the future. And as a result of everything we're learning today, that's all feeding into our thinking on our grant making, because we can see where we can see there's a need, that feeds into what we plan to do with our funding that we've got. So it'd be great if we do hear from groups that have got projects that they kind of are ready to try and get some funding for before the end of March, then brilliant. But also do get in touch if you've come to this and thought, yeah, there is things that I'd like to do, but I'm not going to be ready by that deadline, because it's still really helpful for us to know and to identify projects that we can support. So what I'll do after this meeting is I'll share around that link with everybody that's on the meeting as well, so that you've got it and you can go in and look for more details. But I think apart from that, to just share our social media link so that everyone can see where to find us. That's kind of it from me.
Brilliant. So Twitter's, I manage Twitter, so you're talking to me, and Facebook and Instagram, it's all me. So if I make any comments, you can always DM me. LinkedIn, we obviously have a page. I wouldn't say LinkedIn's that interactive on pages, as Facebook's not particularly interactive, but Twitter and Instagram's good. I have a personal LinkedIn I'm very active on, and YouTube is fantastic because with all these Let's Talks we're doing, we can put them in the YouTube and people can watch them in their own time. And hopefully what we're trying to do is make sure we don't have closed conversations. We don't want to have conversations that exclude anyone in the county. So if we do have conversations and we're trying to share knowledge, we want to put those conversations onto our YouTube channel, and if people want to get in touch with us after that, that's absolutely brilliant. So hopefully we can continue to try and be as inclusive as possible and share as much as possible and being transparent and open as possible. So so really look forward to hearing from you. Sarah, if you want to stop sharing. Brilliant. I can see you all now. Brilliant. Well, thank you all so much for your contribution today. We really, really appreciate. We can't have these conversations without you, and we can't get some of these juices flowing without you. So please do get in touch with us, and hopefully this Cell Next is going to be quite an exciting opportunity. And if we can just show them some of the work that we're doing, this will get watched by UKCF and the person who's given us the funding, and he'll be having a good watch of this conversation, and it all feeds in to him managing the bid and further relationship with Cell Next. So really, really appreciate your contribution and your support to this conversation. Have a wonderful weekend is probably all that's left to say. Have an amazing weekend. Hopefully you'll get a bit of sunshine, and look forward to hearing from you. And I'll say goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.